Hello, it's us. I have a little bit of time and thought I would start a story time about how I ended up where I am. I've lost 200 pounds, not by choice. I'm a stick, not by choice. And yeah, I will kind of do my best to tell you how I ended up here. I have an actual piece of paper this time. I tried doing this the other time just by scrolling through my My Chart, and it was a mistake. So, anyways, a little about myself. I have a lot of GI problems, obviously, with losing a lot of weight, not by choice. My biggest issue is I can't really keep anything down, especially solids. I struggle. I've had to give up a lot of food, do a lot of diet changes, and kind of test the waters because nothing seems to want. The way I explain it to people is it's like my body is going through rejection. It fucking hates it. It doesn't, every time I eat, I've tried grazing. I've tried doing small meals. I have tried everything. It's been 6 years, and I'm still as confused as the doctors that deal with me. So, anyways, some of my symptoms, nausea, horribly, vomiting. I have orthostatic hypotension, so my blood pressure is really low. So I have issues with close passing out. I've passed out multiple times before, but that is also because I have issues with my potassium levels, hypokalemia. And yeah, I've had plenty of hospital stays due to that as well. But I've also been diagnosed with dysautonomia, which is basically the way your autonomic nervous system, how you function, temperature, breathing, all that stuff is regulated by that. And I have issues with that. What else? I was diagnosed with refractory gastroparesis, meaning paralyzed stomach, so slower stomach. And those are the big main issues that I am dealing with, that I have been diagnosed with. Now, it started back in December 2020. I got super sick. I was never tested for, I thought it was norovirus, but I wasn't sure. But it was the sickest I had been in a really, really long time. Now, when I first got sick, it was right around the time COVID started getting big, right? 2020, crazy time. I said December 2020, it was December 2019. And then 2020 rolled over, and that's when I was the year I started just declining. Anyways, so during that, after I got sick over until August of 2020 is when I had a gallbladder surgery. I had my gallbladder removed, I had stones, and I was just losing weight, very sick, could barely work. So we thought, give that a try, right? And after I had my gallbladder removed, I continued with nausea, vomiting. I was sick. I knew something wasn't right, and I didn't like taking, I'm not a big pain medication person, and they had been trying to push meds, and I was eh. And they ended up testing me, and I came back positive for C. diff infection, which is very contagious and very hard on your GI system. And so, through this time, end of 2020, I was still on just a short-term disability out of work. I tried multiple times to come back, and I couldn't hardly function. And so by the end of 2020, I was given the ultimatum to come back to work or lose my job. And so I went back January of 2021, and I worked and busted out 6 months. I could barely eat. I survived on bone broth, and I just dropped weight, and I knew something just was not right. So by early June of 2021, I ended up leaving work again. Everything was just piling a lot. Life was piling, right? And so June, July, I said something's not right. And so we finally did, I think they ended up doing an MRI of my abdomen and found that I had a bile duct leak. And so that first week of August of 21, I had a stent placed in my bile duct to help to get the junk out. Anyways, and that stent put me into pancreatitis. And so I ended up spending roughly 5 days in the hospital because of that. Excruciating pain, would not recommend. And then after I was discharged, after my pancreatitis, so after I was discharged from being treated for my pancreatitis, it was a week and a half, and I was not feeling good. I'm something's not right. And so I ended up back, I believe it was like August 11th I went in roughly. I want to say it was like that week. Don't quote me on the days, but I know I spent like 5 days at the beginning of August, and then I ended up coming back a week and a half later, still sick. I ended up getting admitted in the short stay unit for about 3 days. It was like a Monday to a Wednesday that I can recall. And Wednesday, they were planning on discharging me. Like, because I ended up having C. diff again, which I said, please test me, and they did, and I was right. We know our bodies, I promise you. Like, when people try to gaslight you, tell them to fuck off. Like, everybody functions differently, and I believe we would know when something's wrong. But to come back to that, so I ended up having C. diff again, and they were going to discharge me, and all of a sudden I went into convulsions. I started spiking a temperature, and they ended up drawing massive amounts of blood, and I came back with sepsis. So I ended up getting admitted to another floor because I was in this dark, short-stay basement room. And so I was immediately moved to a different unit to deal with the sepsis on top of the C. diff infection. Because when you have C. diff infection, there are, like, precautions. You, like, have to be gowned and everything when you come into contact with a C. diff patient because it's very contagious. It's horrible. Would not recommend. Highly not recommend. So I ended up spending probably 11, I think it was like an 11-day, the second time was 11 days, the first time was 5. I spent a lot of August in the hospital, and so I think I was discharged the 26th of August, something like that, and with a PICC line in my arm, and I ended up having to be on daily antibiotic infusions for 3 months straight. So end of August to, I went like right before Christmas. Yeah, intense. It was very intense. So at this time is when I finally had to split with my job. October 21 was like my official split date or split. And also during these months after I was discharged from the hospital, I ended up having 5, because after they put the first one in, they had to replace it because it sent me into pancreatitis. So I was on number 2. And then I ended up having 3 more bile duct stent procedures. The third one being, like, the 5th one, actually, I think I had 5 total. The 5th one, they ended up just taking out and leaving out and not putting anything back in. The 5th one, I had some large bile stone, like the gallbladder stones, still in the bile ducts. Like, where the fuck was I hiding the whole fucking few months? Who knows? But, yeah, and that was it. I fired my doctor, and I started looking elsewhere. So I ended up seeing, like, doctors at UW Health. I ended up going to Freighter. I was diagnosed with esophageal motility disorder around the time I went to Freighter, but also fast forward to, like, I think it was like early 2023. It was like March or May, one of those months. It was an M month. I was reheating pizza, and I ate it, and I had my vomiting episode, and after that, something felt goofy. I started having, like, chest pain, and I ended up laying down for, like, 3-4 hours, just trying to, like, wait it out, because I was like, something's weird. Something's not right. And so I ended up back into the ER, and the doctor didn't even want to scan me, but I'm like, I was having chest pain, and I'm like, I give full permission for the radiation. Please scan me. And so we got scanned, and then I had a esophageal tear, an air in my chest. So that was what was causing the pain, and that was excruciating. I was like, yeah, I knew something was wrong. And so I ended up seeing, like, a cardiothoracic surgeon. It was small enough. I did not need surgery, thankfully. And I never ended up with an esophageal rupture. Thank God. I ended up having to go on liquid diet for a while. I've been on multiple liquid diets. So, yeah, not fun. But I feel like I've survived some crazy shit. And, yeah, gotten lucky. I always say I feel like I pulled the short straws, but, like, I guess it could be worse. But after that, I ended up going to Mayo Clinic. They diagnosed me with the rumination syndrome disorder, whatever, and the dysautonomia. And fast forward. And so after I seen Mayo Clinic, was diagnosed with the rumination disorder and the dysautonomia, I was then kind of just whatever until I finally couldn't do it anymore. I've had multiple pass-out episodes, one being, like, one of my first ones, I thought it was stroking out. Because I was like, if you've ever had cramps in your legs, when you have low potassium, you're cramping. So I was in a full body cramp, like my jaw was locked, my fingers were like locked all weird. It was like the craziest feeling because I passed out and I woke up on the floor and I was locked and I couldn't even talk to my mom to tell her like what was happening. It was like the scariest shit, but I haven't had a pass out episode in a minute. But my last big thing was my feeding tube. I had a G tube. It was supposed to be a JG tube. They could not get it placed. And I had a lot of complications after that. It was 6 weeks of absolute hell. And so, which is why I am not looking forward to anything. Like, I'm nervous. And everything has just been traumatic. And so I do my best, and I know I need help. So, but with the feeding tube, it was placed December of 24. And I ended up accidentally pulling it out in my sleep May 1st of 25. And so we're here now, skirting along in life. What can I say? I'm just taking everything one day at a time at this point and doing my ultimate best. I have the bestest little friend to get me through it, though. So we keep the faith that life will work itself out. At least that's what I keep telling myself. So thanks for listening, and I will keep you updated. Okay, bye.